This episode is brought to you by BeWaterSmart.info. It may be fall, but it's still important to be water smart. Make sure your irrigation is off or adjusted for cooler, wetter weather. And did you know fall is a great time to plant your water-wise and drought-tolerant California natives? Planting now gets them established before the heat of the summer arrives. For a list of plants and more water-saving tips and tricks, visit BeWaterSmart.info.
Look at that plant. I want you to know that everything was grown in my garden. Don't touch that plant!
Is it poisonous?
She'll become part of the plant.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Flower Power Garden Hour. I'm your host, Marlene.
And I'm your co-host, Bruce.
And this is your December to-do list and question and answer. We are already to December, Bruce.
December already?
I know. And I think we're on day 1 billion of fog cover.
Yes. 1 billion of fall cover?
Fog.
What does that mean?
Fog.
Fog. Oh, well, you know, not only do I talk funny, I hear funny.
Well,
too.
that could have been me. But yeah, so we've been having just this, Thule fog, they call it, that runs through the valley. And I remember years ago, it would be pretty thick, and the only way you'd see the sun is go up to the foothills. I can't say I'm actually enjoying it probably more than I used to. I don't know. It's okay, but you know, we just haven't seen the sun, and it's actually very cold, but it's holding off the frost.
And I will say, as an Easterner, my first Thule fog was quite an interesting experience, not being able to see the freeway except for the truck in front of me. If he went off the road, I would have followed him.
I think the only time Joe and I ever got off the freeway for weather was during fog. We got onto the freeway and we both were like, we can't see anything. And, you know, you could drive through downpour, rain. I can't say I have any experience driving through, you know, a blizzard, so I can't say that. But fog, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah.
I've had experience driving in near blizzards, and I could tell you it's sort of an experience in itself. It's similar to a Thule fog, except that you see the snow falling all around you, and you're in this dome of visibility that's not very far.
Well, I was going to say the difference is you could actually slide off on snow, whereas fog you can't.
I was going to add that part too.
Yeah, that's the scary part. So, but you know, it's scary enough not being able to see the person in front of you if you're on the freeway.
Yes.
On country roads, you know, if I know where I'm going, it's fine. It's just, it's been actually cold, but it has been holding the frost off. I remember usually our first frost, and my peppers and my tomatoes just die in November. And so far it's cold.
Wow.
So I think we've had like some of the coldest daytime temperatures, but the swings from night to day are like 2 degrees. So it's been holding from like low 40s to mid 40s.
We've been a little warmer out here, but we're still going down to like 40, not 39 yet.
Yeah. Okay. So there's that at least, but let's talk about what we need to do in our December garden. So I'm just going to read off some things because the first thing I want to bring up is, of course, vegetables. I don't know why I always start with vegetables, but for those who vegetable garden, what to plant. You can plant fava beans, of course.
Really?
Yes. Seeds or plants, if you could find them. Kale, radishes, and loose leaf lettuce, bok choy. And if you could find Bareroot asparagus, you could plant Bareroot asparagus. But that's about it as far as vegetables. We're in that in between. If you didn't get some of your winter crops in, you sort of have another chance in, January, February, March. Go ahead.
Well, I got my broccoli and Brussels sprouts in maybe 2 weeks ago, which was late for sure, but they seem okay. I think the fog has actually helped them in the sense that we haven't had much rain, and I've sort of not been watering, but that seems to keep the ground moist enough that they are adapting pretty well.
Yeah, I haven't watered since we had our first rain. I want to say at sometime in October. I turned irrigation off, and that is one thing about the cold. An extra about of course, the fog is, you don't think there's a lot of moisture with the fog, but there's enough moisture if it's day to day that it keeps the soil moist. Because we did have some rain, so it did inundate the soil. So I haven't watered any of my vegetable garden, and it's fine. The one thing with the winter crops, though, it's the timing is it's always the light and the bolting. And
yes,
but they say that, but I've experienced bolting even when you plant it in the correct time. I know other people who've experienced bolting even planting the correct time. So there's got to be a daylight / temperature issue with it.
Well, with you mean with lettuce or with all your winter crops?
With all your winter crops, but especially lettuce and even like broccoli even.
Well, of course, broccoli bolting is sort of flowering, and that's how we get our broccoli, though.
That is true, but sometimes it goes directly to just these little like sprigs of nothingness. Yeah.
So it basically it doesn't have a chance for the plant to grow big enough to get real flower heads.
Yeah. So, but I haven't had experience with even bolting on my cabbage or anything. But I know that's always an issue with more so the winter crops than the summer crops.
Yes, my Brussels sprouts definitely last year bolted before giving much in the way of Brussels sprouts.
Well, mine didn't bolt. They just gave in the way of like these as usual with my Brussels sprouts, because that's one of my nemesis is just these tiny little it's not even so much the size, it's the size in addition to the cabbage aphids that attack them. But
yes.
Yeah.
Well, we do live in a climate that doesn't have that winter freeze that kills off a lot of insects, not necessarily the eggs, but certainly does limit them, at least in the early spring.
So gave you the list of what to plant. So I might as well go on to the sort of how to protect from pests, because winter pests are a thing. Luckily, you're sort of like narrowed down to just a few. So there's the cabbage aphids, which are very gray and very waxy. And that means they're very difficult to treat with soap sprays and oils. Hose blast, just getting them off of the plant is probably your best bet. And usually most aphids, in springtime, I don't care that ladybugs come along, they come and they go, but we don't have the benefit of as many beneficial insects in the winter. So they can multiply and just coat the plant completely. And because of that wax, I really feel like a hose spray is going to be your best bet for them.
Yeah, I'll have to say that I noticed a couple of years ago, my broccoli was inundated with aphids late in the season. Now, these may or may not be the same aphids, but it was a disaster at the end. They were just covered in the aphids.
Yeah. So that's one thing. And it can come usually it comes after, like I was saying with the Brussels sprouts, usually the Brussels sprouts are formed and then the aphids are like, thank you, I'm going to come and attack them.
That's right.
Another big pest is the cabbage looper, which is your little white butterfly that flies around. It lays its eggs, the larvae hatches, the larvae eats and can decimate the whole entire plant. I've learned to just go with it.
I haven't really had too much of a problem with that. I've noticed it here and there. But I've been lucky.
Yeah.
I know that, does the Bacillus thuringiensis or BT help with that?
Yes, it does. I was going to say that's my only thing I ever spray on my plants, really. Like 3 things I may spray on my plants, but that's one of them because it's a natural bacteria. You sprinkle or spray. One time I found the dust and it was way better. And I've never found the dust like at a nursery since then. It's broken down by the sun. So you have to reapply it. And of course, if it rains, you have to reapply it. But what it is the larvae on the leaves will then bite the leaf and then they will get some of the BT, the bacillus, that bacteria, and they can't digest it. Apparently it sounds like this horrible death process, but I won't talk about that.
Yes, I just want to say that we in the plant world, we kill insects in sometimes the most horrible ways.
I know. I feel bad. It's like this. Okay, so I'll mention that it's like apparently this crystal toxin they can't digest and it rips apart their gut or something horrific like that. But I haven't done any this year. Sometimes you could go and hand pick. It's like an Easter egg hunt. If you've got some time, you could just look under the leaves, and they do blend in because they're green and they're really hard to find. Sometimes they're on top of the leaf too. Like you usually think, okay, they'll be on the underside. Sometimes they're on the top of the leaf, right along that mid vein. People, every time I say, oh, just toss them, people are like, oh, feed them to your chickens. I'm like, okay.
Because that's worth the time to take off all the little things and feed them to the chickens.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, like I said, if you're just like, when you're home from work, sometimes when I get home, I don't even go into the house first. I go into the garden. And if you're just trying to unwind, hand picking green worms off of your plants is sort of a decompression.
Okay. I'll give you that.
Yeah, there you go.
I will also tell you that there was the once time way back when I had beautiful broccoli that had the caterpillars on it, but I did not notice them. So I made beef and broccoli.
Oh, God.
And
no.
at the end of the thing, it was some caterpillars. And then I only wonder how many did we eat? We'll never know.
No. I probably added that extra little tang to it. That's gross. Yeah. I will say when I harvest, so I don't grow a lot of loose leaf lettuce. For the reason is when I bring it in and I'm washing it off, there's just like slugs and insects. It's so unappetizing by the time you clean some of the stuff off. You're just
I found that, yes, with my Brussels sprouts way back when I would have to like peel off the outer few layers because I didn't want to have pieces that had been bitten and eaten by slugs. And,
it's the slugs that get me. I don't mind the aphids, but like the loose leaf lettuce, it always seems to be like snails and slugs, and I'm just usually gagging as I'm washing it going, who am I kidding? I'm not going to eat this.
And apparently eating a slug, an uncooked slug, can make you very sick. They harbor diseases that are quite awful.
Yeah, I think we're talking about that story about the guy who in a like a dare ate a slug and got a lung parasite or infection and died. So no, I always think about that. But no, I mean, that is true. Another reason, something else to be worried about.
If I see slugs on my lettuce, I may have not ate it, but if I do eat it, I actually wash it in dish soap.
No, I mean, that's one reason why loose leaf lettuce isn't like, at least with cabbage and head lettuce, it's like concealed. You have to rip off some of the outside layers because like right now I have cabbage ready and I looked and there's holes all over it. And I know if I rip off, 2 or 3 layers, the inside's going to be fine. So, that's why I don't treat. And, I didn't spray any BT. I didn't hand pick anything off and my kale got really hit. So I'd go out and most of the blade was almost completely gone, but the midrib of the leaf was there. And I know now that these the larvae, they have a time. They're going to come, they're going to form a larvae, and then they're going to leave. And there's not multiple generations enough to ruin the plant. So I know if the plant's going to survive, it's going to take this, and then it's going to grow. And sure enough, so I'm now just more into the waiting out process of letting these larvae just come and go. But I think people, when they see their leaves being completely chewed down, it can be worrisome. But
mine started to get it affected before I even planted them. I took them home from the nursery, sat them in the garden. I'd plant them in a week, and they started getting little skeleton leaves. So I put the BT on very quickly. And it hasn't rained since I put it on last, but I probably should give it another dose.
Yeah. Or they're gone. So so cabbage, aphids, and the looper cabbage tend to be the most problematic pests in your winter garden. And birds, believe it or not, I don't know what it is. You know what it is. I know what it is I don't direct sow most summer veggies. I usually start them in pots, but winter veggies, I direct sow like radishes and lettuce, and the birds will come and they will just pull the little growths out. So you'll have nothing there. What I've learned is just to take an old flat of a nursery flat and turn it upside down. And it allows enough sunlight in. But anything to protect the seedlings from the birds coming to get it.
You mean to say a property that has 30 cats running around it has a bird problem?
Okay, don't get me in trouble. Remember, there are people who don't like feral cats because of the birds.
That's true. But, it's the windmills that are killing the birds.
It is. It is. Well, I mean, having walked through miles and miles and miles and miles of windmills on the Pacific Crest Trail, yeah, it's pretty sad. No, I mean,
Oh, really?
I'm not saying. Oh, yeah, it was. Oh my God. At first, it was like, oh wow, look at these giant windmills we're walking by. Like, day 4 or 5, you're like, oh my God, I am so tired of this. Yeah.
But of course, the reality is that cats do kill like 600 million birds a year just in the United States.
They do,
It's
Bruce. I
insane.
know. How many birds and how many, this is what I always say in my defense, how many beneficial insects do we just kill driving our car?
Oh,
Smashing.
please. And you know what? I love
Exactly.
cats too. I am a cat fanatic. And as far as I'm concerned, I understand that's an issue, but
Hmm. Yeah.
I love my cats.
Yeah. And most of the time, the birds that I see dead on the property have flown into our window. I've been there, and there's not. I try to, see a cat try to get a bird yesterday, which is actually very rare. But yeah, it's not a perfect solution. And my solution when people say, "Oh, feral cats are bad," I'm like, "Well, would you like some to keep inside your house? I have some." So that's it. So, but those are your pests. Those are your winter veggies to plant right now. What else do you have on your list of winter
Well,
to do?
you stole my thunder. I
What?
would say that
No.
what my number one is check your weather forecast daily, and if you have marginally hardy plants,
Mm-hmm.
make sure you have covers ready in case there's a frost or a freeze.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and let's see, you already got me on the did you forget to plant your winter vegetables? We've already talked about
Well, let's
that.
go back to the frost. So you're from back east.
Yes, I
I'm
am.
always confused about how do like roses and hydrangeas when you get snow, the snow insulates, but didn't you, I mean, I always see people using hay or straw to insulate, things die
Yeah.
down.
Well, what we do is a couple of things. First of all, roses, you can prune roses during the winter there because it's not going to be warm enough you're not going to have a warm spell that it's going to make them sprout. So
Okay.
if you've forgotten to prune your roses, and you have nothing to do on a 45-degree day, which is, wow, it's 45 today, you can go out and do a little bit of rose pruning. When it comes to hydrangeas, there's a problem with hydrangeas on the East Coast, at least the older ones that were less hardy, like the florist hydrangeas,
Mm-hmm.
that the problem we'd have is that it would sometimes die back to the ground,
Yeah.
but they bloom on second-year wood.
Yeah.
So that was our issue there. And
I'm
for me,
always
it was
confused
just,
by that. I mean, because Martha Stewart apparently grows beautiful hydrangeas, and I'm like, wait a minute, they grow on 2-year-old wood, but if they die to the ground.
well, I think the newer hydrangeas might be different. And of
Okay.
course, there's a lot of hydrangeas that are perfectly hardy. But
Okay.
the florist hydrangeas, at least 25 years ago, they were difficult there.
Okay.
But what I also discovered having grown them there is that, yes, letting the snow sit on them is a good idea. And number two is if you had enough growth that survived the bottom, and remember, I lived in zone 7A, which didn't go below 0. If you had like 6 or 8 inches, or let's just say 6 inches of the stem surviving, that would sprout and bloom.
Okay.
So that it was just a brand new
Got
growth.
it. Okay. Okay. So 6 inches was.
So right now, I guess my recommendations for people on the East Coast is that, unfortunately, it's not going to be a lot of gardening, but if you were prepared, let's just say, and put in your full crop of carrots or even leeks, that one of the nice things is when you have a hard freeze in January and you still have carrots in the ground, you can go and dig them. And I've done that.
Wow.
And sometimes you have to take a sharp spade, and of course, if you have a 1 foot down freeze, it's not going to work.
Wow.
But in zone 7, you can, your ground doesn't really freeze more than a few inches. And if your carrots are below that point, you dig, you pull them up, and they're perfectly good and much, much better than actual frozen carrots in the store, even though they're frozen. So that's one of the nice things that I enjoyed in the winter there is I had some carrots in the garden. And it was nice to have a fresh vegetable that I picked in the middle of January. So that unfortunately is something you've had to do before.
Yeah.
But it's a little early to do this next thing, which is if you're living and you're in the cold and you're getting these winter blues, what you do is if you have forsythia in the garden or pussy willows, you can cut them, keep them in a cool room, and the forsythia will flower, the pussy willows will flower, and you can get a nice middle of the winter fresh bouquet. Typically that would be towards January, but I think if you're cold enough right now, maybe a little colder zone like zone 6, you might have had enough winter cold that you can start cutting back some forsythia.
Okay.
And that's nice. Forsythia is very common on the East Coast because it's so easy to grow and so cold tolerant.
Yeah, it's not super common here. It's one of the one-time spring bloomers. So once it's bloomed, then you prune it. We had some at the Winchester Mystery House, and that's really the only time I've ever really worked with it when I was gardening there. And, it's bright yellow. It's pretty, but yeah, it's not super common out here.
No, and you know what? I think it makes sense because in the cold zone, forsythia blooms very early spring, so it's really a welcome flower after winter. But it's not that exciting. The plant itself, once the leaves come out, it's nothing fancy.
No, it's not. It's not. So yeah, that makes sense in the East Coast where everything is just sort of white and covered in snow. Then you have this bright yellow coming. Whereas in the West Coast, we have things that bloom year round. We have actual flowers blooming year round and green. So, and it isn't a very showy flower. No.
And I believe you can also do this with flowering quince or possibly flowering cherries, but it has to be the early ones, not the ones that flower like late on Mother's Day. I don't think those will work.
Yeah, quince blooms pretty early. I want to go back to the frost protection because people get a little confused. They think, okay, it's cold. What do I cover? But every plant has a different cold tolerance. And for the most part, everything you see growing outside has already survived most of our winters without protection, with, few exceptions. So, if you know the name of the plant, the easiest thing to do is just Google the name of the plant and the cold tolerance, and it'll tell you. Because if you have some of these marginal plants where if we get a rare, I'm not going to say rare. For me, it's not as rare. But yes, if we get a true frost 32 below, some of these plants aren't going to tolerate it, especially at the younger age. And people want to know how to protect them. So generally, that's going to be your young avocado, your young citrus, plumerias, even certain salvias and certain succulents.
And some of the things another thing that I've been getting growing is bananas. And those are fine here, but unfortunately, if you want to get the fruiting bananas, they tend to only be available as like little test tube babies. So sometimes they take a while to get going. And from the same batch, I have one that's only 6 inches tall now and one that's 5 feet tall from the same nursery. The 6-inch one probably will need to be covered if we get frost because it doesn't have enough mass actually to survive a cold night.
Yeah, so there's plants like, say you had a poinsettia, you moved it outside. Its cold tolerance is like 45, 50. It's going to already die. So if you need to protect that, you need to do that at 45 or 50. But most people who have plants in the ground, it's that 32 when you hear there's a frost coming, the ones that can't tolerate a frost.
Right. And there's also, if you want to overwinter things, I mean, I've overwintered coleus, although I wouldn't recommend even bothering. But if you want to overwinter something, then it's a bit of a pain because you don't want to keep it covered all winter because it will tend to rot. If it's like an impatiens, you can overwinter an impatiens, but if you cover it all winter, it's going to rot. So
I'm just going to go through ways of, say you have a plant that can tolerate everything up until a freeze, 32. And what do you do? So you always want to make sure, unless it's a succulent, you always want to make sure it's well watered in and the soil is moist because moist water will radiate heat up. So that's step number 1. Water it ideally 2 days ahead. 2, you don't want to just lollipop it. You don't want to just cover the foliage and expose the stem and or pot. If it's in a pot, you want to, I guess the saying is, make ghosts, not lollipops. So take the fabric and pin it underneath, tuck it underneath the pot, or pin it to the ground. And you don't want to use plastic because if you don't take it off during the day, it's not going to breathe. It's going to heat. It could heat up. You want to use either burlap, a frost blanket, or cotton, something breathable. And ideally, you don't want it touching the foliage. So you want to stake it up and drape it over it. So that's sort of the bare bones of how to protect a plant.
I would also want to add that plastic is not a very good insulator.
True. Yeah.
When you see these plastic greenhouses, they are usually either double. They're the 2 layers of plastic with air inside, or that polycarbonate twin wall, which has basically a dead air space in between.
Yep.
So plastic is not really good for so many reasons as a cover for your winter plants.
So make sure they're well watered in. Make sure you're using the protective covering. Make sure you're covering it properly. And then there's the light issue where if you add lights, is that going to heat up? But this day and age, it's impossible to find lights that are not LEDs. And the whole point of LEDs is they don't emit a lot of heat.
That's the big problem. I've made that mistake. In New York, I had a windmill palm that I had gotten to survive, I think 5 or 6 years through 5-degree nights.
Wow.
And I put it in I built a little mini greenhouse for it.
God.
And I put the lights in. Well, one year I said, why don't I use these new lights? That was the last year of that plant.
Oh.
It died because there's no heat from those.
So you used LED instead of the incandescent lights?
For some stupid reason that I will never know.
And it made that much difference. It went from surviving with lights around it to not being able to, because it created that much heat.
Right. And this plant was getting big. I mean, for growing that in New York, this was before the days of the super hardy ones. This is your basic windmill palm, not one of those newer ones that are from high elevations. And it was up to around 4 or 5 feet tall. So that's just a little lesson.
How did you wrap
those lights? One of the best places to get the old fashioned lights is a garage sale.
No, that's true. How did you wrap a palm? Did you just wrap it around the petiole? You couldn't get it around the leaves.
What I did is, since the whole thing was covered, it was like basically a big cube.
Okay.
And it was just plastic, but I'd put a blanket over it during the cold nights.
Okay.
And I think I probably left the blanket on all of January because our coldest month there was January. And then I would wrap the base of it with the lights. And I wasn't too worried about the lights touching the plant. I did not wrap the leaves, but the leaves were higher up, so the heat would rise, I assume. But yeah, there's always the issue if you have those and it hits the leaves, it'll burn the leaves.
Yeah.
But you know what? A little bit of a burnt leaf spot, it's not going to catch fire.
No.
And especially if it's 5 degrees outside. I'm trying to keep this thing above 30 degrees.
Yeah.
So it did work.
Yeah. And that's the thing is people are like, oh, don't wrap them, avoid the leaves. But yeah, it won't catch on fire. And if you have a little bit of burn and the plant survives, so be it.
Another thing that people did out east, and this is something that for you people who might live higher up in the foothills where you go down to maybe, 15 degrees or high, closer to the Reno, is they would take their fig trees, they'd dig up like one side of the tree, and then they'd lay the whole thing down into a trench. Then they'd cover that with leaves and then put blankets over that for the winter. And this is something that the old Italian men from Italy would bring over their prized figs when they emigrated to the United States. And they would get them to last for years by just every year, just cutting off half the roots on one side, tilting the whole plant over, and covering with leaves. And this, figs are not hardy to 5 degrees. And Long Island, at least once every couple of winters, hits 5 degrees and sometimes as low as 0. I don't think negative ever.
I would be so worried about cutting the half of the root ball. How long did they do that for? You can't do that once
they did it forever.
So they're basically bonsaiing the plant. So they're keeping it smaller by doing that each year.
They weren't trees like they are here. They're probably maximum of 10 feet tall.
Okay, because they don't get that big. Okay.
Right. And they prune them. But yes, that was what they did. And they take the whole thing and rotate it 90 degrees into a trench.
Wow. That's dedication right there.
Yeah. So there's amazing things that you can do if you want to grow plants that aren't hardy to your zone.
Yeah.
But in our area, my biggest suggestion is, a lot of us like plants that, I'm growing 25-degree hardy mangoes. They claim it's 25 degrees. So for things like that, that's really where, for us, the biggest issue is that we really don't freeze much. We do frost.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really freeze. I mean, to me, a freeze is below 30. A frost is,
Yeah.
just a total different thing. So our biggest issue is you have these 3 nights in the entire year where you
Yes.
might freeze, but
Yeah.
you got to protect the plants for those 3 nights.
Yeah.
And it limits what you can grow so much if you don't work for those 3 nights.
I know. It's just that, I mean, it's perfect until it's not. And that could be
Right.
just detrimental to plants. And I just want to go back to the succulents where I say don't water your succulents in. They're full of water already. And they should, already be watered. You give them more water, their cells could literally burst and turn your plant into mush once it freezes. It will literally freeze the leaves and it will just mush. So, and then the number one thing, if you have a plant in a pot, bring it closer to the house, bring it inside when in doubt. I had a papaya for years. I would bring inside until it got so big that one year I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I bringing this papaya inside? It was like, I'm not bringing it in anymore.
Well, I have a papaya that's sitting in the warmest part of my garden right now, next to my mangoes and next to my traveler's
There you
palms.
go. There you go.
There's something that you said I was going to comment on, but now
You can't
I
remember,
don't
'cause
remember. But it's about protection. But
Okay.
oh well, maybe it'll come.
We'll move on. We'll move on if you remember it. Because I do want to say that also this time of year for your fruit trees, it is the time to spray your liquid copper for peach leaf curl. And that goes with your peaches and nectarines because once again, a nectarine is just a hairless peach.
It's a peach that has shaved. It's an
There you go.
alopecia.
Yes. Oh, ha, 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 ha. Yeah. So they get the fungus that causes the red puckering and the leaf drop. And now is the time to treat it with liquid copper. But you always want to spray when we have a time of dry weather. And I want to say it's barely dry. I mean, I don't know how long this weather pattern is going to go, but it used to be the rule was Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Valentine's Day to spray your peaches and nectarines. But by the time Thanksgiving comes, a lot of times the leaves are still there.
Yes.
And then by the time Valentine's come, it's already flowered out. So if you could get at least one spray of liquid copper in, you're golden. And I always mix in a dormant oil, like a Volk oil, to help it stick. And the Volk oil acts like a dorma oil and will kill overwintering eggs and insects. And so if you have an aphid problem on something, spray your grapes with it, spray your crepe myrtles, spray your roses if you have any insect problems. So now's the time to do your dormant oil as well.
Well, you've gotten me again because that is exactly what's on my list also.
Okay.
And I actually don't use the copper. I just use the dormant oil spray and not the copper. And it's worked well enough for me that, I'll always see a little bit of leaf curl here and there, but not enough to have affected the plants.
Okay. It's very bizarre, the peach leaf curl. So when I had my previous house and I had a mini orchard, I would every year spray. And even with wet years, you still may have a little bit of breakthrough because once a peach nectarine gets it, the spores are there. It's almost impossible to eradicate it. What you're trying to do is just smother as many as you can. This year on my few peach trees that I have and nectarines, I didn't spray and I didn't get peach leaf curl. So it's very much a weather induced problem. Even the spores were there. So if we have a drier spring or temperatures are just right, because I was like, oh, I'm ready for just this tree to be decimated because I didn't get around to spraying it because of cats.
Right. It's always cats.
Trust me, it's always cats. So yeah, but it is a good idea because once you try to prevent your tree from having it, but once it has it, those spores are going to linger and it's impossible to get rid of it completely.
I think what's good about it, though, the saving grace, I would say, is that unlike some viruses, when it doesn't get into the plant itself, it's on the leaves.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
so
correct. Yeah.
As long as you can prevent, it's about prevention. There's no treatment for it.
No.
But if you can get it on, so I use the dormant oil spray. I mean, theoretically, I try to use that multiple times through the winter, which is it's a little safe. I don't want safer. It's a little easier to use than copper. I mean, copper does have potential for being harmful, especially if you have fish tanks,
Oh yeah. I know we
So,
can't
yeah.
use a copper fungicide on our carnivorous plants. So if they get powdery mildew, I can't use them on there because it is a mineral. So,
Yeah.
uh, uh,
But
but go
what's
ahead.
nice is that the newer quote unquote dormant oil sprays are now can be used year round, at least some of them.
Yeah, it used to be the dormant oils were heavy oils. And the summer sprays were a light oil. And now apparently they're all a light oil.
Right. So
And
that's good.
so really it's hard to say when I say dormant oil. The only reason I say dormant oil is it's always risky spraying any oil when the temperatures are high because an oil could burn when temperatures. So that's why you sort of want to do it when it's dormant and not when the problem's already active because then it's difficult to do.
Right. But it's nice to know that you have a little more leeway than you used to. Like sometimes I'll see the flowers in bud, not blooming yet, but in bud.
Yeah.
And I'll say, geez, I forgot my dormant oil spray. But there's no leaves out yet. And I do spray with the newer types. And I think it makes a difference, even though it's last minute.
Yeah. So what else is on your list? I just sort of have like one more.
Well, let's see. My next thing is get your spring seed order ready.
Okay.
Because if you like to grow things that are not the run-of-the-mill stuff that you see at the nursery, there's only one way to get it, and that's through sprouting your own seeds. What the nurseries do is they don't grow their own plants. That's with a rare exception. So they get their plants from suppliers. The suppliers will sell them what sells and what's easy for them to grow. And what they can get in bulk. So they're not going to if you see this brand new variegated impatiens that, well, let's just say it's available from seed, even though it's not. But you see this new impatiens you must have. You might not get that at the stores, but you can grow them easily enough for seed. And when it comes to vegetables, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
If you want to grow all these weird varieties of tomatoes, you've got to order the seeds yourself.
And nothing was like, this was so true during COVID. So for years and years and years, I would order seeds and I would order them at a certain time. And I remember COVID came and I went to go order things and they're like out of stock. And I literally went, you got to be kidding me. I should have been excited for, the growers, but I was actually more like, what? What do you mean?
And some places, like there's, for instance, if you want to grow chrysanthemums and you don't want to get the exact same things every year that the stores have.
They're gone already.
It's just like the red one and the orange one. You have to go to the online suppliers.
Yeah.
There's really only one or two left, and they open their, let's just say January 1st, their catalog opens, January 5th, they're sold out.
Don't tell people because I'm online for that.
Well,
I want to grow
you
some
better,
of those
you better do it quick. I mean, and let me know, because the problem with also is these companies is sometimes they have a $100 minimum order because they want to weed out us little nothings.
It's so easy to, and this is the thing is you have to plan ahead. Most of the time people, when they see the flower, that's when they not want to know about it. But it's like, no, you need to plan this way in advance and know, because most people think chrysanthemums right about now. But you can't find, you could go to the store and buy the potted chrysanthemums, but let's be honest, those are not very showy chrysanthemums.
No, I mean, if you ever go to a chrysanthemum show, you might say, well, in half an hour, you might run through it and say, that was nice. But the reality is what you're seeing there are flowers that you just never going to see in the stores, the spidery ones.
I know.
Little spoon-like, quill-like petals.
Yeah.
So, and you should also know that when you get your mums from in the spring, they're going to be little sprigs, maybe 4 inches tall.
Oh, they're going to look like crap.
What'd you say?
They're going to look like crap.
Yes, but amazingly, those, we talked about this last time with the giant mum that Walnut Gardens tried to grow. Those will be full-size plants by the fall, and you will be so proud that you took a little nothing and made it into a bush.
Yeah.
But yes, so the point is get your stuff ordering now.
Correct.
When the time to order bulbs is when your bulbs from 2025 are blooming. That's when you order your bulbs for 2026.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
And I know people are going to ask, it's too late to plant your spring bulbs, right? What if you have
Well,
some daffodils sitting
yeah,
around?
except for if you have daffodil bulbs left over, just plant them. You'll
Yeah.
probably get flowers.
Exactly. That's what I tell people. If you have them left over, go ahead and plant them if they're not bushy. Mine is just clean up because that's all I ever seem to do is just clean up and weed abatement. So, I just pulled out some of my tomatoes. Usually I pull them out when they freeze, but they're not really producing. They're producing but lingering, and I'm like,
Right.
okay, I'm pulling them out. Oh, I know what I was going to mention. Peppers, because peppers and eggplants technically can overwinter. So if you have them in pots, cut them down now, bring them inside, taper off the watering. They're perennials. They could be moved back out. If you have them in the ground before our next frost, cut them down pretty low. And that's when you want to insulate with straw, hay, mulch, cover them with burlap. I've tried doing that, but
I have styrofoam. I had a whole delivery of stuff with big styrofoam boards, and I'm going to make little mini covers for my peppers with that.
Yeah, anything to insulate the root system. And then if you just prune the stem down to just a few inches, it will come back. I mean, I've had eggplants come back when I haven't protected them. Peppers, even when I protect them in the ground, I just run so much colder out here.
Right.
But you could also try digging them up and putting them in a pot if they're in the ground. So do that before the frost comes. Some of your perennial veggies do that. So that's part of your cleanup. Remove if you were concerned about disease, get the whole entire plant out of the garden. When you're ripping up tomatoes, look at the root ball. If it was acting weird, if it was growing stunted, it's always good. I've trained myself to look at the roots to see if there's root knot nematode. You'll see little nodules. Other stuff could just be completely composted in the beds already, or put it in your compost pile. But if you're worried about pests, if you're worried about disease, either throw it away or put it in your compost bin. Don't mulch it right there in the ground. But a lot of times you could just leave the whole entire root ball to just die. Just cut the base down and let it decompose in the ground.
Yeah. When I've grown corn, the few times I've tried corn, it's a lot of work getting those corn stalks out of the ground.
It is.
So if you cut them down really low and let them rot, they might rot in time for spring. But I don't grow corn anymore because of the corn smut issue.
Oh, some people like that. I never have that issue. Right now, we talked about planting fava beans. That's a cover crop. You could do a winter cover crop. The idea is it grows. It's green material. You cut the green before it fruits. That green material goes back into nitrogen because it is a nitrogen fixer. It's produced its own nitrogen, so it hasn't taken any more nitrogen out of the ground. So you're actually gaining nitrogen. When you lose nitrogen is when you let the plant go to fruit. So don't let it go to fruit if you want it to be a, quote, a true cover crop and nitrogen fixer.
Yeah, and a lot of people put clover in their garden for that reason.
Yeah.
Don't confuse clover with oxalis.
No,
very
do
similar.
not do that. Yeah, no, clover is a nitrogen fixer, and it still will sprout up as a weed, but if it's a winter one, it'll sprout up in the winter, and which isn't as bad. So that's what I have.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything. Oh, I have two things.
Yeah.
If you get winter holiday plants.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have a whole episode on this, but go ahead.
Okay. So I'll just be a quick one on that. Make sure that the plants that you buy for yourself or your friends are not infested or infected with whatever. You should do that with any house plant.
Yeah.
But what happens is a lot of holiday plants, they sort of get abused. Like buy a poinsettia, stick it in a corner. People will just ignore it. And unhappy plants are good targets for bugs and disease. So you just want to make sure that when you buy a plant for someone, you don't give them the gift that keeps on giving.
That is true.
And affect their other plants.
And you notice we really haven't talked about pruning because we'll get to that later because right now is not a great time to prune your trees or your roses. So just stay tuned for that.
Yes, of course. When I was talking about pruning roses before, that was for people who have actual winters.
Yeah. What are we going through? This is not an actual winter. I'm sorry.
This is a play winter. It's like it's sort of like going to a wine tasting place.
Yes.
And you taste a little bit of wine and you say, oh, that was good wine. But, if you have a little bit of frost, you say, oh, that was a winter.
Yeah, I don't know. Derek, our volunteer, he came in and he's a transplant from Minnesota and he's like, it's cold here.
Well,
I never know what to think about that.
I'm not from Minnesota, but
Yeah.
I do know what cold is.
Yes.
There's other things I've had on my list. Of course, if you have a lot of indoor plants,
Oh,
and
yes.
and you have the heat on, your house will dry out,
True.
and you will be more likely to get spider mites.
And the light changes. Remember, you're having a decrease in light. So a plant that may be getting full sun in with the light change may not be getting that much light. So don't freak out if your plant's not growing, if
True.
it's
It might
stretching
drop
out
some
a bit, it might drop some leaves. So it may be going through but eke it out. Don't add extra water because you think it needs more water. Chances are it may need less or it may need more. If you're running the heater more, that's really going to dry plants out. So always check the soil, but you're correct. Yeah. Indoor
And plants that were growing in, let's just say, a northern exposure outside might be very happy in an eastern exposure and even a southern exposure if they're not right up at the glass. Remember that in the winter, the sun comes directly into your house, whereas in the summer, the house shades the sun. So it's sort of the opposite. In the winter, you have more sun in the south window.
And also some of those up against the window this time of year, it's cold. So if you have a plant right up against the window, it could be quite cold. So you may want to move it away, just like you would in the summertime when the sun's really intense.
Right. And again, you people in the cold areas, on a very cold night, you can peel ice off the inside of your window.
When we lived in the trailer, we were building our house and we didn't have heat. I would scrape ice on the inside of the window.
Yep. I remember I lived in upstate New York, and I would scrape 1/8 of an inch of ice off the inside of my car.
God. Oh, inside your car, yeah.
Inside the car, but before I started in the morning, it was -5 degrees.
Oh my God.
And -5 was common there.
Oh my God.
I'd be scraping ice off the inside.
This was,
when
I
was
think,
into
the
college.
coldest when I got inside the car when we were living in the trailer was 19. And that was here. It was 19 degrees. I remember because the cat we had had frost coming out of its mouth, and then it proceeded to start sleeping under the blankets with me. It was so sad. Okay.
Yes, that's when your cat becomes your best friend.
Yes. Okay.
Oh,
so,
I have one other thing.
Of course. Go on.
The number. Did you have your fate? You just save your best for last?
Of what to do?
Yeah, we usually have our best for last.
Not for what to do, Bruce. You're calling me out. Usually it's my okay, no, go on.
Oh, that's the top 10.
Yeah.
Well, I did. Okay,
What am I
I had my
missing?
top 10 things to do. I'm
What am I missing? What am I missing? I'm probably missing a lot. Go ahead.
My top 10 thing to do, which is I know I violated the rules.
You're just adding that it was our top 10.
It wasn't our top 10.
No, it wasn't.
But anyway, I'm sorry I've ruined everything.
Yeah.
But if you're living where it's really, really, really cold, this is the time of year you want to look out for a botanical garden near you, which might have a conservatory.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and escape the winter doldrums.
Oh, first of all, I do live in an area where it gets really, 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 really cold. Isn't 42 really, really cold during the day?
But that's what we called in January, January thaw.
It just so happens I know a great conservatory.
Do you?
Yeah. I mean, you come there every week, and I sort of go there every weekday. So yeah. No, the conservatory actually it's warm, but the not all parts are warm. We don't have the heat to keep it all warm, and but the tropical rooms are pretty warm. So correct. Find a
and even the cool rooms are green.
Yes,
except when they're gray.
And if we keep them running at 65, they are still warmer than it is at 45. So yeah.
Right. And even Cheyenne, Wyoming has a botanical garden with a 28,000 square foot conservatory.
Cheyenne, Wyoming. For a city of only 60,000 people. So you realize that's 1/2 a square foot for every person in the city. Oh my God. Don't they have a lot of money coming in though from people?
I don't know where they get their money from, but they do have, the only place that doesn't have one, shall I say, is Sacramento City doesn't have one. We do have the Davis Conservatory.
I know, but that is a little, okay. So the reason why Bruce and I are mentioning this is we were the original board members for a botanic garden, to create a botanic garden in Sacramento, because it is true. There is no botanic garden in Sacramento.
Nope.
What are we like?
They're working on it.
Yeah, they're working on. All right, so we'll move on. Let's move on to questions. Okay, I'm going to read the first one. Please help. My husband insists that his Christmas lights he wrapped around my pitcher plant are fine. I read that it could cause heat damage to my plant. He won't listen to anyone but you. Oh, well, that's nice. My husband doesn't listen to me, so at least someone's husband listens to me. Joe shaking his head.
It's funny because we were just mentioning Christmas lights.
Talking about this. Yeah, we were just talking about this. Yeah. So pitcher plant. I got this email today and I had to write it back, and I was confused because I'm like, pitcher plant. I know that is Nepenthes, the carnivorous plant. They're tropical. I said, is this what you mean? I said, it's inside, right? So, and she said, yes. So what's your feeling? What are you going to say about this? You already talked about this a bit.
Oh, you cut out a little bit, but basically, yeah. So is it an inside or outside pitcher plant?
Well, it's inside because it's Nepenthes. And so it turns out he just wants to wrap Christmas lights around it for decoration. Not
that's
for
what I
heat.
figured.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay. I was confused. So yeah. So it can. We talked about this. Yes. If especially if you're using incandescent lights, they radiate more heat. But even LED lights have a little bit of heat.
Right.
And if you have a plant that's tropical, growing inside, all of its warmths are met, there's no need to wrap around any lights. And in fact, it may be more harmful because there's still probably some heat being emitted.
Right.
And if you don't turn the lights off even though it's tropical plants, longer light, it could still, if you forget to turn them off and you run the lights all night. I would just say it's not a great idea, especially for a plant that likes humidity. It might be drying it out more is a bigger issue too.
Right. So my thinking is, first of all, are you doing this as a Christmas decoration?
Yeah, that's what they're doing it for.
Okay, because I wasn't really sure. I was saying, well, first of all, why? No offense to your husband, I'm sure he's a lovely person. But why would you want to wrap Christmas lights around your pitcher plant as Christmas decoration? Is that like Christmas for the carnivorous plant? But
she literally said he just wants to decorate everything.
Okay.
So yes. Yes.
Okay. So I guess if you really want to do that, and let's just say we're talking about, not very bright ones, so they're not going to throw off the photoperiodism of the plant. Then just wrap it around the base of the plant. Wrap it around the pot or maybe on the hanger itself. Mm-hmm. You'll probably damage the pitchers somehow if you're tying wires around the pitchers.
Yeah.
Just don't do that.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't think it's the worst thing, but it's not great for the plant. It could hurt it more than it benefits the plant.
Right.
Yes.
And after all, pitcher plants are so gaudy and cool anyway.
I know.
They're already like Christmas decorations.
Exactly.
They're like deadly Christmas decorations.
There you go. All right. Yeah. I'll read the next one and then I'll let you read the other ones. How about that? Okay. Hi, Marlene. I have a white peach tree and I get so many bugs and ants on them every year that I don't get any peaches out of them. How can I keep the bugs off my white peaches? What's your thought?
Well, this is really interesting because we've sort of actually answered this question already in a way.
A little bit, yeah.
It's the winter. So the first thing I'd say is let's just assume that it's more than just bugs, that there may be some disease involved in this too. She doesn't say that, but it's certainly possible. Mm-hmm. So I think the first thing I would say is, at the very least, because it's the winter season, give it a dormant oil spray, mm-hmm. or what we were talking about before.
Liquid copper. I would throw in some liquid copper.
Okay, so and by the way, Marlene and I have different ideas. I think that the copper will work. There's no question there. Mm-hmm. I just don't like to do with copper for various reasons.
It's just like 3 times a year, Bruce.
I know. It's like they stopped making the penny because we're running out of copper, and now we're going to throw it on our plants.
I guess I spray copper like on a weekly basis on the growth chambers for these people who are doing wheat research, and they just grow them so close together that the fungus is out of control. Oh, yeah. And anyways,
so let's just say if there are ants on the plants, if you have ants in your plants, then it's very possible that you've got aphids also, or scale,
mm-hmm. or any sucking insect.
Right, because ants are farmers. Mm-hmm. Ant farms are things that we grow, but ants farm other insects like aphids. They sort of protect them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll help the aphids. They'll drink the little secretions that come out of the aphids' butts. Yes, the insect world is lovely.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing is you've possibly got aphids or scale growing on your plant.
Yep.
So we really need to get rid of the aphids. It's sort of the winter, so I don't think there's much in the way that she's going to do now. But I would recommend when the plant starts blooming or starts breaking dormancy, that's where you might want to use an insecticidal soap on the plants to start getting rid of the aphids.
I always spray the dormant oil because some of these insects do overwinter.
Yes,
so
that is true.
It's a good idea to do the dormant oil because some of these overwinter and you're smothering them. And then I'll just pick up any dead leaves. And of course, this looks like it isn't fruiting, but I would say if your plant was fruiting and you had problems, always pick up the dead fruit too.
Yes, absolutely. Because, when you see the fruit that is all distorted, it's very likely more than just insects going on causing that problem.
Yeah.
And of course, come spring, ladybugs do a great job on aphids.
Yeah, but go on.
You were going to say?
No, I don't want to interrupt you. You said, but you threw the bud in there.
They do a better job when they're in the larval state. And you can't really get ladybugs to do much right now because it is winter.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now you probably don't have any pest problems, but prevent them by picking debris up, spraying your dormant oil.
Right.
And I'm just going to say, besides the soap spray, is get that tanglefoot handy, because if you do see ants, you always want to protect their access points, stop them in their tracks. Because we see this at work is we use ant bait because the ants will just scare off any of the natural predators because they'll swarm them. So you always want to control your ants, and tanglefoot is just the sticky stuff that you could put around. And there's more than ladybugs. Is parasitic wasps to me are the go-to for. They're out there, and just people don't notice them because they're tiny. But you always want to squish your aphids, what you think are aphids, to see if they're alive, get a hand lens, see if there's exit points on the mummies. Scale is tough because once it's mature, it's really hard to get off. But you always want to get...
Scale is almost, you have to do manually to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And if you have a big tree, you can't view it.
Yeah, you want to get in that young stage. So, yeah. And then why you're not getting any peaches, maybe it's because it is. A lot of these, if you have so many pests, they suck literally the photosynthates, the sugars out of the plants. That removes energy. They drop leaves, and you won't get fruit. So if it's a really bad infestation, you're not going to get any fruit.
Yeah. And of course, in general, there's also issues of, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later when someone has questions on a mandarin tree, that mulching will really help keep the soil from drying out. And, it might just be that the plant isn't that healthy. And of course, then it's a better target for infestation.
Yeah.
So a healthier plant will resist insects a little better.
Yeah.
Not a lot necessarily, but a little bit.
But any bit helps. All right, let's go on to the next question. You want to read it?
Sure. Hello, Marlene. My name is Cheryl, and my question is about a pomegranate tree we just bought this morning. This morning on Good Day, you talked about replanting and the root ball. Should I do anything with the roots on the pomegranate tree?
So I talked about transplanting something and teasing the root ball. So
when you tease a root ball, do you use specific names that are for each specific plant, or do you have a general insult?
Yeah, I say say if it's like a ficus, I'm like, oh, you funny ficus, look at how funny your roots are. Tease it like that. Yes.
Okay. So I think my question when I was looking at this was, did she just buy it and she's going to transplant it into the ground?
Yeah.
And
that's what I got. That's what I assumed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I guess I would say my thing when I take a plant out of the pot to like a fruit tree or whatever is how root bound are those roots?
Yep.
If they're really, really root bound, then I'll actually do a little bit of a cut into them to just sort of open up the inside of that root ball to sort of let the newer roots start to grow. Because sometimes what happens, they just get stuck and they really can't escape the really overgrown root ball.
Mm-hmm.
As far as teasing the roots out, yeah, I like to, if it's doable, I like to very carefully open up the root ball sort of by sticking my fingers into the bottom of it and just gently opening that whole area up.
Yeah, it's really specific, and you start getting a feel for it when you've been working enough. But
Yeah.
I always say it's a good idea to tease no matter what. And you sort of know if you take a plant out of a 4-inch pot and you don't see many roots on it, you don't need to tease it. If you take a plant out and it's in the shape of the pot and all you see is a coating of roots around it, then it's probably a good idea to tease it, because the idea is you want to get these roots to start growing out and not in the same. They sort of have like this idea that they're just going to grow in the same area, and you want to tease them and get them so they're almost disoriented in a way, so they start growing out.
And what you're doing is, excuse me, what you're doing is you're exposing all those inner roots into new soil. So that will give it another more space. You'll essentially have a lot more surface area at the roots exposed to the new soil.
Yeah. There are some plants, however, that do not like their roots exposed or like teased. And I only know 2 off the top of my head, but I'm wondering if there's others. So I'm always like hesitant. I know bougainvilleas do not like their roots disturbed. And I don't know if that's even like an old wives' tale, if that's just been passed down, or if that's really true.
Well, I'm going to say I think it's true, because every bougainvillea that I've transplanted, typically you'll buy them in the store and they're really
They look
overpotted.
great. Yeah.
And so you take it out, the whole thing falls apart, all the roots are exposed, you plant it, and they die. I mean, I think they're very hard to transplant.
Yeah. We'll have to practice one at work. We have a few that are just so pot bound.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And then the other one is roses. I've was told that roses don't like to be transplanted in their pot, but having learned that I actually do better with plants that are in roses that are in pots versus Bareroot for whatever reason, is I've had success, but I don't tease their roots as much. I sort of take them out of the pot. A lot of them are in peat pots when you buy them anyways. You could almost just score the peat pot and put them in there. But so there are some plants that just don't like their roots. I'm going to tell you right now, ficus don't care. We have an 8-foot ficus in the greenhouse with a 3-inch diameter root growing into the ground, completely pot bound in a tiny, tiny pot. We cut that root. It didn't miss a beat. I mean, that's a massive root. Ficus don't care what you do to their roots.
And then I was just going to give another example. This is a palm that I love that's really hard to transplant, called the Bismarck palm, and also palmettos, that if you take a Bismarck palm and you buy it in the store, you take it out of its pot, you tease the roots, you will probably kill the plant.
Wow. Okay.
So when I actually transplant that, I will take like the entire pot, put it in the ground, and while the plant is, before I add the soil, I'll cut the pot apart around the plant. And I'll even leave, if I have to, I'll leave the base of the pot in there rather than risk ruining, disturbing the roots, because I've killed more than my fair share transplanting.
Yeah. I was going to add something. I completely forgot what I was adding.
Oh, well, both of us are doing that today.
I know. I love that. It was like, ooh, I'm going to add this. And I'm like, ooh, I forgot. It was something about transplanting. It was something about transplanting. I do know that like certain like very fibrous root systems, like prayer plants, marantas, like a student mentioned calling it zesting, where you take a serrated knife and you sort of just shear off the sides of it.
Yeah.
And then you could cut the bottom off certain plants. That works. Tease them with your hands. Sometimes you want to, if you're going from one soil type to the other, you want to try to avoid remove most of the soil, but there's a balance between destroying the roots. And some plants, when you take them out of the pot and you start teasing, the soil and big chunks of roots come off. And at that point, I just stop and go, it's not worth teasing, because I'm losing more roots than I am. So it's always a sort of a different for each plant, but the idea is still there. Yes, tease it. It doesn't have to be a lot. You don't have to remove all the soil. You don't have to, if you could just make it so it doesn't look like the same size pot and it doesn't look like it'd fit back into the pot, that's good.
Right. Remember that whenever you transplant almost any plant, you are disturbing the roots. And I remember way back when there used to be a garden show by a man named Ralph Snodsmith. And his opinion was every time you transplant a plant, you're basically killing off a tremendous number of the root hairs, which are little extensions off the epidermis of the root. And they're not part of the cell, from what my recollection is. So the point being that the root hair is what's actually absorbing the water. So you just need to know that the less disturbed, there's a balance between opening the roots up so that there can be new growth and damaging the roots by messing too much with them.
Correct. Yeah. So it's not just a one-stop shop for every plant, but that is a good rule of thumb.
Right.
All right.
And we've talked about orchids previously. And orchids are a plant that if you don't get it at the right time, you'll kill it by transplanting.
Yeah, we'll go into orchids a different time. Yeah. All right. Sure. Read our last question.
What do I do with my mandarin tree? The leaves are starting to curl, and I did not get as much fruit this year.
Okay. You want to tackle this one first?
Sure. Well, there's many things can cause the leaves of a citrus to curl. A biggie is, frankly, just insufficient water. So what I would say is now, again, the soil's pretty moist, but generally, if you should take a look at your soil, let's just say midsummer. And a lot of times you'll find that it's really dry the first few inches, and then you dig down a little further and it's still dry because you're not getting enough water at the root ball of the plant. And when soil becomes really dehydrated, it then repels water. So you might need during the season to make sure you keep properly irrigating it. Adding mulch, of course, helps too, but mulch should not be to the very edge of the stem. You should give a few inches around the stem when you put mulch on. Of course, then there's insects, and insects can cause leaf curl. Using soap or neem oil helps that. And check the pH, because the citrus like the soil to be just a little bit acidic, like 6.5 pH. And you probably know more, Marlene, what our soils tend to be here. I don't know that number.
Well, but I'm a total outlier. I mean, it runs the gamut. Like where I'm at, seriously, it's 8.5. It's really high. But where you're at, I'm guessing your is probably 6.5.
Right? I've measured it. I've gotten 7, which is close enough.
Yeah. So no, I mean, it just, and even outside the outskirts of Sacramento, out of the older parts, it probably is more alkaline. But most plants prefer acidic conditions. But I will say citrus tolerates a pretty wide range from my experience. But you're correct with you're correct with most of that. I'm not that I'm grading you or anything, but I was going to say.
What did I say wrong?
I was going to say it sounds like I'm judging you, but we'll just rule out the insects, because it's true. The citrus leaf miner could cause that funky, weird rolling. But then you have this weird white trail in it, and it's not even like a cupping or a curling. It's almost like a puckering and a weird, and it's not on all the leaves either. So, and that's not what I assume they meant, because usually they're like, look at my leaf. It looks weird with this white trailing. But, cupping's weird because you could assume, yes, if it's in the summer and your soil's dry, or it could just be a heat response too. But it's something where I've never it's sort of almost like tomato leaves curling. You could read and hear everything about it, but I will have certain tomato plants that are just curling and other ones aren't. And so I think citrus is the same. It's some environmental factor, and it's usually, water, temperature, or maybe a combination. But for whatever reason, they will just curl up or down. And then, one of them I think is like, oh, if it's up, it's water. If it's down, it's water. So,
well, it could also be an infection of some fungus too, obviously.
Yeah, that would be very rare. I think that would be very rare.
Okay.
I mean, usually then if it's something, then you'd have like leaf drop falling off.
Right. And they don't get citrus leaf. They don't get peach leaf curl because they're not even in the same family.
No. And usually the fungus problems on citrus are very like more noticeable versus just a curling. So it's usually more environmental, but like you said, always dig down into the soil. Always dig down into the soil, not just an inch, 8 inches down to see what the moisture is, because you could think you're watering it. Maybe it's not, or you think it needs water. Maybe it doesn't. And then if you've overwatered it, you're rotting off like we just talked about. You're rotting off those little feeder root hairs. And so it's not getting water, but usually that would result in a wilt. But almost always if the plant looks good, and it has a little bit of leaf cupping, it's not a problem.
And, the other thing is, how old is this plant? I've put my mandarins in probably 2 years ago, and they're still establishing a root system. Whatever flowers they had when I bought them, it has not flowered since. And I don't believe it has anything other than to do with, it just doesn't have a great root system yet. And I probably am not watering enough.
Well, it's very common. I mean, I admire a lemon tree that didn't fruit for 5 years. And some people will get a plant with fruit on it from the nursery. Remember, they're growing in pristine conditions, being pumped full of, and then you put it in the ground and it's true. It's trying to get self-established. And then almost, it seems like a magic number, 1 year, it'll just go bam. And so she also mentioned, he also mentioned, I didn't put names, even though there were names. Well, they're actually Instagram handles. So who knows if they're male. It was not fruiting, and citrus can be alternate bearing. Well, 1 year you will get a heavy crop, and the next year it may not be as much. So there's always that. If it's just a one-off 1 year, I wouldn't be concerned, because it could be as simple as it poured rain when the flowers were there or something. So that's not abnormal, and I don't think that's the cupping effect. If the plant's green, not dropping leaves, you have to sort of look at it as a whole when you have the leaf cupping, but I'm not concerned about when I see just citrus cupping and the rest of it's healthy, because it's just one of those weird random things sometimes.
Now, what if you're starting to get yellowing in your citrus plants and the leaves?
Yeah, right now you could be getting a lot of yellowing because the plant's not taking up water, not taking up nitrogen, and if it's depleted a lot of it, it's showing yellow. Right now, this is the thing, is I've never like fertilized citrus if they're in the ground. But right now you do run the risk, if the plant's gonna absorb that fertilizer and it's gonna utilize it, it will push out new growth, and that new growth is sensitive to frost.
Right.
So I would say I would wait until spring to fertilize. I'm not concerned about yellowing on a citrus this time of year. If it's losing leaves, then there's some root rot going on. Or if it's a mature one, then there's some disease going on. But yeah, I always wait to like fertilize if there's yellow, because usually yellowing citrus balance themselves out. In spring, you see this yellowing, and then all of a sudden it corrects itself. And you see it with olives, and you see it with a lot of evergreen plants. Well, they will correct themselves. Like there's a olive orchard down the road that I took care of for years. And I remember just 2 years ago, I was driving by and I was like, even I was freaked out. I'm like, man, these are all yellow. What the hell's going on? And I'm like, okay, maybe it's just doing this. And sure enough, it just corrected itself. It like takes up the nitrogen, balances itself out. So, yeah, there you go. I think that's it. So we went a little longer on that just because it's December, but there was stuff to say.
Oh, there's always stuff to say when it's plants.
I mean, that's true. That's true. And so I mentioned we are going to do our next one will be on how to take care of holiday plants, either when you get them or after, unless you're fine with just them going to the compost pile.
And you can be. It's nothing wrong with that. The plants understand.
The plants are grown to be a sacrifice. They're celebrating the pagan holiday. Isn't there like some sacrifice in the pagan? My mom always joked. She's like, "We're not celebrating Christmas. We're celebrating pagan Christmas." I'm like, Okay, Mom.
Yes,
Whatever.
we celebrated Festivus in our house.
There you go. There you go. So look for that. And if you like the podcast, you like Bruce and I, then please rate and review. It does help us move us up through the charts and helps people find us. So write a really quick review. I know it seems like a pain because all you have to do, though, I think, is just hit something, then type a few nice words in. Do nice words. Or if at the very least, just give us a 5-star review or 5-star rating. And of course, tell your friends about this. Share it on social media. And until next time, everyone, happy gardening.
And we'll see you next time.